Welcome to video 4 in the Knitty Gritty Intro to Knitting video series. Today we're going to move on to the fourth and final building block of knitting, which is known as the bind off. Binding off is the term we use for finishing a project, and it's what keeps your stitches from unraveling once you're done. Just like casting stitches onto your needle, there are varied methods and techniques for binding off stitches at the end of a project, and each pattern will tell you the specific way that you need to bind off to make sure that pattern works the way it's supposed to. But this method is by far the simplest way and can be used in most of your projects. Let's get to it. In this video, we're going to go through a basic bind off, which is how you finish your work. So you can see I've knitted about 10 rows on 10 or 11 stitches here, and I'm ready to go ahead and bind off this work and call it done. First thing we're going to do is we are going to knit the first stitch off of our left needle. So I've got one stitch on my right. We're going to knit the second stitch as well. Now I have 2 stitches on my right needle. In order to begin the bind off, what I'm going to do is with my left needle, I'm going to insert it into the first stitch that I knit. And it's going to go from the left to the right, through like that. And I'm simultaneously going to pull the stitch with my left needle over the stitch that's still on my right needle. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to pull the right needle under the left needle. So we're going to thread it over the top, looks like that. Slip it off, and now I'm left with one remaining stitch on my right needle. Let's go through that again. I'm going to knit now the next stitch off of my left needle, which will once again give me 2 stitches on the right. Now with the tip of the left needle, I'm going to go through this first stitch and out, and I'll pull it over the other stitch on the right needle. And at the same time, the right needle is going to poke through like this. Slip it off the left needle, and again, we're left with one stitch on the right needle. Knit the next stitch. Once again, 2 stitches are on the right needle. Through the first stitch, pull it over the second stitch, slide it off, and you can see here I'm beginning to have the end of my piece. I'm going to knit the next stitch through, pull it over, and at the same time pull it under, knit the next stitch, and we follow that pattern all the way to the end. Then I'm down to my last 2 stitches here. Bind off that last one, and now you'll see I'm left with 1 stitch remaining on my needle. Now what do I do with that last stitch? You can see my working yarn is still hanging out. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to cut that working yarn and holding that stitch down here at the base, I'm going to pull all that entire strand out through, and now you can see that is nice and secure on there as well. And we can leave it like that for now, and eventually we can go back with the needle and we'll thread that in. You'll check out my different video on threading the working yarn back through or tying this off in order to preserve your work. But that right there is bound off. Those stitches are not going anywhere.